Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for being here with us today. I am Jessica Collins, the Executive Director of the Public Health Institute of Western Mass. And we are joined today by an esteemed panel, which we are very happy to have speaking about this important issue. We have State Senator Adam Gomez, attorney and Springfield City Councilor Mike Fenton, Dr. Matt Sadof, organizer Rusty Polsgrove, and our leader of the Pioneer Valley Asthma Coalition, Sarita Hudson. So before we start, I would like to just talk a little bit about some housekeeping. If you have technical difficulties or need help, please send a direct chat to one of the hosts. We are recording this webinar, so the recording will be emailed to registrants and posted on PHIWM's website. When the webinar ends, we will ask that you please complete a short survey about your webinar experience. It'll only take about 1 to 2 minutes, and we appreciate your feedback very much. There will be a brief Q&A after the presentations, and you can submit questions using the Q&A feature found on your Zoom menu bar. And if you would like to enable automatically generated captions, please click the closed captioning button on your Zoom webinar. So today we're gathering for a very specific project and rather urgent moment. The Springfield community members, leaders, and public health advocates have been advocating against a proposed biomass plant in the Indian Orchard neighborhood of Springfield since 2009. We thought this advocacy had been successful, but recently the project was resurrected, which is concerning to many of us. As a public health approach, we aim to lift up protective factors in our communities that support positive health outcomes and mitigate risks in our neighborhoods that exacerbate poor outcomes. And we see the Palmer Renewable proposal for biomass project in this neighborhood to be a tremendous risk to community health. And today we have the opportunity to hear from Springfield leaders about the project. And first, we're going to start off with our State Senator Adam Gomez. Thank you so much, Senator, for your leadership on this issue.
So good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank the Public Health Institute of Western Massachusetts, the Pioneer Valley Asthma Coalition, and the Healthy Air Network for organizing this critical conversation. Let me start with this. I wish we didn't have to be here. To be honest, I thought we were this issue was long gone, but we're here now. And over 15 years, we fought on this same fight as advocates, myself as part of the city council, and now as your state senator. And the people of Springfield had stood up time and time again to say no to the biomass incinerator in our community in East Springfield and Indian Orchard. We've written letters, we've organized meetings, we've marched, we've testified, we've rallied, we've sued, we've passed even prior pieces of legislation in the past years that I've been here. And we've won battles. Permits were pulled and contracts were canceled. And for a while, it felt like maybe, just maybe, we had won the war. But now we find ourselves here once again facing the revived threat of the Palmer Renewable Energy Biomass Plant. What many of us call a zombie plant, because no matter how many times it's defeated, it keeps coming back to life. This facility is not new, and it's not needed, and it's in particularly not safe. It would burn over 1,200 tons of wood per day, pumping out dangerous levels of particulate matter and carbon emissions right in the heart of East Springfield, a neighborhood that is already struggling with some of the highest asthma rates in the nation. In 2024, the Asthma and Allergy Foundation ranked Springfield as the 4th worst asthma capital, quote unquote, in the country. That's not just a statistic. It's our neighbors, our children, and our elders suffering from a preventable public health crisis. Now, 2 recent court rulings have revived both the local and state permits from this plant. And despite 15 years of unrelenting public opposition, and the developers are pressing forward, I guess, And that's why I filed the legislation with my good friend and colleague, Representative Orlando Ramos, to close the biomass loophole. Here's what the legislation does, and in simple terms, back in 2021, the state passed the landmark Next Generation Climate Roadmap Act, which created new greenhouse gas emission standards for municipal lighting plants, or as we know, MLPs. These are publicly owned electric utilities that serve about 14% of Massachusetts residents. The law required MLPs to source an increasing percentage of their energy from non-carbon emitting sources. The problem is biomass was included in that list. That means starting January 1st, 2026, 6 months from now, burning biomass would be counted as clean energy source by MLPs, despite the fact that it emits more CO2 than coal and gas and contributes significantly to air pollution. That's a loophole. Our bill S2288 H3549 would remove woody biomass from the list of qualified non-carbon emitting sources under the MLP standard. It brings the standard in line with the rest of our state's clean energy policies, which already exclude biomass from the Renewable Portfolio Standard, RPS, and the Clean Energy Standard. Why is this important? Because the developers of Palmer Biomass Plant built their business model around signing power purchase agreements with MLPs. At one point, they had contracts lined up for nearly 75% of the power. Those contracts have been canceled, but if the loophole stays open, those contracts could be renegotiated. And if we don't close the loophole, this polluting facility may finally have the financial lifeline it needs to become a reality. And we need to stop it now. The bill is not just about words on a page. It's about shutting off the flow of public dollars and clean energy subsidies to a facility that has no business being called green. It's about protecting communities like Springfield and our surrounding communities from Springfield from being sacrificed from someone else's profit. It's about making sure that science, not the lobbying, guides our climate policy. Now, where do we go from here? These are some next steps that I have for all of you. And we need the legislatures to act, and we need it to act fast. The bill must move before the end of the session. We need the governor's we need to get it on the governor's desk before January 1st deadline. We need you to raise your voices, contact your legislators, and tell your friends and organizations in your communities, like the ones that put this webinar together, and other ones that know that we want to breathe clean air, especially when we say that we can't breathe, we really can't breathe in Springfield. And if you live in a town served by an MLP, ask them where they stand. These loopholes may seem like a small technicality, but it has a very real consequence. We need continued public pressure. We need to continue the pressure. The governor has already included this policy in her energy affordability package. That's momentum, but it won't go anywhere without people power behind it. Let your representatives know and that this is non-negotiable. We can no longer afford to reward pollution under the guise of clean energy. We cannot call it progress when it comes at a cost of our most vulnerable communities. And we cannot and must not allow a biomass incinerator to rise in the middle of Springfield while claiming to be moving towards a clean energy future. I'm going to close by this and say, I believe in our community. I believe in our power of local organizing. And I believe that we are closer than ever to ending the fight for good. But we need to finish what we started. We need to close the loophole. And we need to pass S22 and H3549. And we need to protect the air, the health, and the future of our people in the city of Springfield. I want to thank all of you for being a part of this movement. Let's keep fighting. Y pa'lante siempre pa'lante. Thank you so much until we win.
Yes. Thanks so much, Senator Gomez, for your passion, for your endurance, and for your motivation to all of us to keep going. So next, we'd love to hear from you, City Councilor Attorney Mike Fenton. If you could give us sort of your local perspective, we'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Jessica. And first, Senator Gomez really hit the nail right on the head. I was looking for the clap button on my webinar feature, but I don't have that. So I'm clapping for you here, Senator. And thank you for being an advocate and a staunch supporter of the opposition to this from the outset, both on the City Council and now in the State Senate. So as Jessica said, my name is Mike Fenton. I've been on the City Council since 2010 and been an opponent during the entirety of that time to this plant. I also share Senator Gomez's passion for keeping clean air in the city and in the surrounding communities. And I'm sure that's a sentiment that'll be largely echoed by a lot of the other participants on this webinar. So I'm not going to belabor the point. I think where I can really provide a different perspective is more in the historical context of the city of Springfield's opposition to this. So what I've done is I've typed up a couple of notes here on the history, and it was really sort of a motivating exercise for me to go through and just recall where we started with this plant, this Frankenstein or zombie plant, and where we are today. So what I'd like to do in my 10 or less minutes that I've got here is sort of walk through that history and then just conclude with where we are today and where I think we need to go. At the outset, I'd like to say that opposition to this, and I see Rusty has the paper mache inhaler in the background. The first time I saw that thing was in the Pine Point Community Council building on Berkshire Avenue, probably in 2011 when I was first elected. And that paper mache inhaler has gotten a lot of use in opposition to this plant. But our opposition has really been throughout all the decades and opposition. It's been focused in three primary areas. There's the local land use opposition. How do we stop Springfield municipal permitting from allowing this plant? There is the air quality permitting happening with Mass DEP and the opposition efforts that have been led there by more of the scientific community. And then there's the legislative general court, as Senator Gomez talked about, and the tax credits that really make this project economically feasible. So there's been sort of three legs to this stool that have allowed us to delay and oppose this project successfully for the better course of the last really more than 15 years, because it was first permitted in 2008. But my expertise and my focus on a municipal level and on a legal basis has always been on just one of those stools. My expertise isn't as much in the tax credit piece or in the scientific air quality piece. It's always been on the local permitting piece. So I'd like to paint a picture for everyone and just tell you where we started, where we went, and where we are. The last person I'd like to acknowledge and thank for joining before I do that, though, is my colleague on the City Council who's joined in the crowd, and that's Councilor Govan, who has also been, Councilor Zaida Govan, who's been a vocal opponent and colleague of mine working on this. Our district's sort of a butt right in this area of East Springfield where wards 2 and 8 connect, and that is where this plant is proposed, and Councilor Govan couldn't have a better partner in a neighboring district to help us fight this plant. So thank you, Councilor, for your help and for being here today. In 2008, September 2008, the Springfield City Council, when it did not have any ward representatives on it, and was a much less diverse board at the time, issued a special permit for the biomass incinerator on Caldwell Drive. That permit remained in effect for about 3 years. In 2010, a new wave of city councilors, including ward representatives, I was one of those, came on and viewed a lot of things in government differently, but specifically this biomass plant. After about a year and a half of due diligence and work, we successfully revoked that permit in May 23rd, specifically of 2011. So we revoked their special permit to allow this biomass incinerator. Subsequent to that, we celebrated a great victory, and we thought that we had won. and we had demonstrated why that permit was not appropriately issued. We had a new, more progressive government, and we revoked the permit and we celebrated. And I felt great. I was, 24 years old. We had a great, nice little, moment there. But very shortly thereafter, we realized that there was a lot of lobbying and forces behind this project and behind this industry that would prove to continue this fight for the better part of the next 15 years. So what happened in the months after our revocation of the special permit was that the Springfield Building Commissioner in fall of 2011, so less than 6 months later, just issued a building permit and said, well, we know that they had a special permit and you took it away, but they really never needed the special permit in the first place. And they could have proceeded with just a building permit at the outset, and they never really even needed the city council's permission. So we see that you've taken that permission away, but they were just being nice when they asked you, and they didn't really need it in the first place. And as you can imagine, that was not an agreement that settled well with us at the time. So we appealed that decision a few months later to the ZBA, and a group of us, it was not a supermajority at the time, took that decision to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals decided to revoke the permit. That decision was subsequently appealed by Palmer Renewable Energy to the land court. At the time, the city administration was against opposition to this. I wouldn't say that they were in favor of the plan, but they were against opposition. So we didn't have support resources from the law department. So this is February of 2012. I had graduated law school less than 6 months before, and I represented the council on the first appeal because we didn't have pro bono counsel at the time, and the law department wouldn't do it. So we took that appeal. Subsequently, we were able to recruit pro bono counsel, attorney Pat Markey. After that, we got the Conservation Law Foundation involved, and they've been since representing us pro bono on these matters. The land court decided against us, unfortunately, and they agreed with the building commissioner that it was okay to just issue the building permit, irrespective of the revoked special permit. We appealed that decision to the appeals court. It took 2 years, and in 2014, we lost that case before the Massachusetts Appeals Court. We appealed and asked for review from the Supreme Judicial Court, highest court in the Commonwealth, and they refused to hear our case in 2015. And so we were dealt a pretty devastating blow at that time. In 2015, we were quite upset, and the building permits that had been previously issued were upheld. Thereafter, about 4 years go by, no activity whatsoever on the site. Changing state and Commonwealth administrations changed some of the air quality standards, some of the economics around the tax plans. And so a group of us started to say on the city council, well, how are these permits still even in effect? I mean, we know that the court reinstated them, but they're only supposed to be good for 6 months. And at this point, we're talking about permits that are quite old, several years old. So we appealed that decision to the building commissioner. Building commissioner sided with Palmer Renewable Energy. We appealed that decision again back to the ZBA. Again, the ZBA sided with us and determined that the permits had been expired. That decision came down in May of 2021. Subsequent to that, Palmer Renewable Energy took us back to court over that ZBA decision. This time we had CLF and we had more support from the city law department. We had a new wave of wind at our sails, and we won at land court. We were really happy and felt like the project was dead again. They appealed that decision to appeals court, and in October of 2024, the appeals court met at Western New England University. Myself and others were there for the oral arguments. We felt great about the arguments presented, and then we were just handed a devastating decision on May 7th of 2025, overturning the lower court's decision and saying that those permits first issued in 2012 are still good 13 years later. These are permits that are only supposed to be good, ladies and gentlemen, for 6 months, not 6 years, never mind 10. So we feel really upset with the result of the appeals court decision. We have worked with our counsel, CLF, to ask the Supreme Judicial Court to hear our appeal. which previously they refused to during the last set of litigation, which was almost exactly 10 years ago. It was 2015. So we're hopeful that the SJC will hear this appeal. We're working with our council on support letters from the community. We're going to ask the Public Health Institute, Arise for Social Justice, and others to sign on to explain to the community the importance of hearing this case. And we will continue at every step and every turn where legally possible to oppose this plant on a municipal land use basis. So I'm really proud of that history. I think some of it may seem overly detailed, but I think it's important for this group to know the constant work that has gone into keeping this appeal alive and keeping this opposition front and center when it comes to local land use. Without that continued opposition and the ability to delay construction, we wouldn't have the opportunity to talk about things like the DEP air quality permits or the removal of woody biomass, as the senator indicated, from renewable energy sources for municipal light providers. So today we're left still with those same three legs to the stool: local opposition, and you've got my word that we're working on that, and there will be every appeal that can possibly be taken on a local level, so long as I am still here and so long as that of the members of the city council that have continued this fight still have the energy to pursue it, and we do. And then there's the air quality permits with the DEP and the tax credits and the work that the state legislature is doing. So I'm really proud to have been a part of this fight. Want to get as many community leaders as we can signed on to that letter encouraging the SJC to hear our appeal and hopefully side with us that these permits that were issued over 10 years ago have in fact lapsed, and to finally put an end to this Frankenstein biomass plant and create a cleaner air situation for the rest of our community. So that's all I have for my presentation part here.
Yes, thank you so much. And I agree with you. I think really helpful to have everyone understand the steps, and obviously your legal expertise is just critical. And thank you for your passion and endurance in the fight. So moving on to Rusty, from an organizing perspective, a resident perspective, we'd love to hear from you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rusty. I'm the Associate Director of Arise for Social Justice. And I'm here to talk about, philosophically, perhaps, why this is all happening here. So today we gather not just to talk about air, but to talk about justice, environmental justice, racial justice, and economic justice. And here in Springfield, we know better than most what it means to be denied all three. The proposed biomass project is not new, not to Massachusetts, not to the developer, and not to Springfield. This same company floated similar projects in other communities, but only here in Springfield did they push hard. Only here did they refuse to back down. Why? Because they thought we wouldn't fight back. Because Springfield is a majority Black, brown, and low-income city. Because this system, rooted in white supremacy and capitalist exploitation, sees our people, our neighbors, our friends, and our family as disposable. But they're wrong. For over a decade, the people of Springfield and communities across the valley have been showing up, speaking out, and organizing to make it clear. We are not disposable. We deserve clean air, safe neighborhoods, and a future free from the disproportionate burden of toxic infrastructure. Arise for Social Justice has been fighting this project since the beginning. We've stood up and said, we will not be your dumping ground for toxic energy. We have fought this because we know what it means to breathe toxic air. Springfield already ranks among the worst cities in the country for asthma. We don't need more studies to tell us what we already live every day. We need action. We need protection. That's why we're not only opposing this biomass facility, but we're pushing forward. At Arise, we're working to ensure that the clean energy siting and permitting in Massachusetts doesn't repeat the same harms that have brought us here. Through our work on cumulative impact analysis, we are demanding that agencies look at the full picture, not just one project at a time, not just one developer, but the total burden that our communities are already carrying. And through our advocacy for intervenor funding, we are fighting for community groups like Springfield, like other small communities throughout the Commonwealth, We want them to have the resources they need to be full participants in complex processes like siting and permitting, like this SJC process that we're going through, because we believe that justice requires voice and voice requires access. Our work with the Live Well Springfield Coalition and local residents to bring community choice energy to the city with a 100% renewable option is proof that our community is not only capable, but deeply motivated to build the green future that we deserve. And the truth is, this biomass proposal isn't just about one plan. It's about a system that has always prioritized profit over people, especially people of color. It's about how land use has been weaponized against our communities, from redlining to zoning to toxic industry. It is about how capitalism and racism are braided together in the very air that we breathe. And we're not just fighting against something, we are fighting for something. We are fighting for clean air, for safe neighborhoods, for real democracy and decision-making about the infrastructure that controls our lives. We are fighting for a future where environmental justice is not an afterthought, but the starting point. That's why today we're calling on the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court to take up this case. We deserve our day in court. Our state's highest court must not turn away from a clear opportunity to confront environmental racism. This case is about more than permits and policy. It's about justice. Thank you.
Thanks, Rusty. And now we will turn over to Sarita, who's going to share a little bit about our asthma data and how this is a risk factor. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the speakers. I do want to speak. One of the things that the reasons that we're here is because of the health impacts on people with asthma. And I just wanted to clarify and explain how we have been making progress on asthma. If you look at this chart that we're showing, there was a 10-year decline in asthma hospitalizations in Springfield. So you see that top line is Springfield and the bottom line is the state of Massachusetts. And really, you see there's a tremendous decline in 2018 to 2020. That was before the pandemic. That is really showing that the work that our healthy homes remediation, the school interventions, our community health worker interventions, everything, the focus on asthma really was having an impact. Now, fast forward, because this data is this is the latest data available from DPH, from our state, and that goes only to 2022. The latest data that we know on asthma is from the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America that has put us once again at number 4. We were at number 1 earlier, and then we dropped to 10, then to 53. Now we're back up at number 4. And so we know that there is still an asthma issue in our community, and that we still need to be working really intensively to remove any air quality or other issues that are related to asthma. So that's what I wanted to show that. And now I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Matt Sadof.
Thank you so much for having me and inviting me to speak this afternoon. My name is Dr. Matthew Sadof, and I'm a pediatrician and professor of pediatrics at the UMass Chan Medical School here at Baystate in Springfield. Senator Gomez and Councilor Fenton has mentioned before some of the legislative history and some of the history around the opposition of this plan, and I'm here to talk about the science. Air pollutants, particularly fine particulate matter, PM 2.5, and nitrogen dioxide, as well as ozone, have a well-established adverse effect on both the development and progression of heart disease and asthma. In 2018, the American College of Cardiology, the American Heart Association, the World Heart Federation, and the European Society of Cardiology jointly recognized that both the short-term and long-term exposure to PM 2.5 and nitrogen dioxide increase the risk of ischemic heart disease, stroke, heart failure, arrhythmias, cardiovascular mortality, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, asthma, type 2 diabetes, and increased adverse pregnancy outcomes and increased infant mortality. This occurs even at concentrations below the current regulatory standards. And I'm going to say that again, even below the current regulatory standards. In this statement, they made the association that air pollution decreases life expectancy at the same level that cigarette smoke does. I just want to say that again. It's equivalent to smoking cigarettes. In a subsequent 2020 policy statement from the American Heart Association, they also cite how the inequity in air pollution exposure can contribute to the increase in cardiovascular disease in communities just like ours. Community like ours, where infrastructure like highways and emission-creating industries are located, they should be subject to a very, very detailed environmental impact statement that includes looking at it through the lens of inequity. And they should be subjected to a detailed health impact assessment that needs to be looked at through the lens of race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and environmental justice. It's important to highlight this fact, since as was mentioned previously by others, that the air quality in Springfield has already been given a D rating by the American Lung Association for a particular matter. After much progress, however, Springfield, unfortunately, is now ranked again as one of the 10 worst cities in the country to live with asthma. Like other communities disproportionately affected by air pollution, we rolled up our sleeves and we worked together. And as Sarita mentioned, our asthma hospitalization dropped at a rate even greater than the rest of the state. We worked hard. A coal-fired power plant in Holyoke was shut down. As a community, we worked together to improve indoor air quality through improved housing regulations and asthma home visiting programs that have been replicated throughout New England. We work closely with the schools and public buildings to encourage the use of asthma-friendly cleaning practices and anti-idling rules to improve air quality that helped us all to breathe just a little more easily. And over a decade ago, we thought we even stopped the construction of this filthy biomass incinerator in the center of town. We came together as a community. We developed a program that was to bring in over $20 million of federal funding for home renovation that focused on improving indoor air quality and planting 1,500 trees in our city to help improve carbon capture, decrease ambient air temperature, and improve overall air quality and health. But times change, and federal policies changed, and we are already in trouble. The funding was clawed back by the federal government without notice. So the climate will continue to get warmer, and with each degree Celsius, there's an increase of mortality of 3.4% for cardiovascular disease. The air quality will not improve. So now they want to build this filthy biomass incinerator in the center of town. The air is not great here in Springfield. As a pediatrician, I've seen people die from asthma, and I'm angry. This slide from the 2021 Academy of Pediatrics Council on Environmental Health Policy states it all. There are severe adverse health impacts to adults: increased cardiovascular disease, lung disease, metabolic disease, and cancer. Childhood outcomes are terrible. Asthma worsens. There's decreased lung function. The amount of adverse birth outcomes, including prematurity, also increases, and this leads to neurodevelopmental delays in children, as well as an increase in autism in that population. This work was again confirmed in 2024 by the American Academy of Pediatrics. The science is clear. Adding more pollutions to our air will make all of us sicker. There will be more people with fatal heart disease. There will be more deaths from lung disease in both children and adults. The existing disparities in neonatal mortality will continue to widen. More and more children will have neurological disability. This plan cannot move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sadof, and for all your years of caring for our children and advocating for them in so many different ways. But for sure, your passion and expertise in this regard has been very much behind this work and will continue to be. So thank you. At this point, Senator Gomez did have to step off. Unfortunately, he got pulled into a different meeting, but we would like to open it up for questions. And I think definitely what I would love to just sort of, if we could just sort of level set all of our understanding is, and maybe Sarita, maybe you could just give us an overview, or actually maybe Dr. Sadof too, but why is the air quality, particularly in our greater Springfield area or region, so compromised anyway? That, you know, this is an exacerbation, but could someone just give us an overview of like, why is the air quality less or more poor than other air? Is there a reason for that?
Sure. So I can speak to, there are a couple of things that are in play. One is that we're in a valley. So any of the poor air quality just sinks and sits in our area. We receive the poor air quality that might come from other regions. So if you look at some of the wildfire smoke, impacts that we've had, those they just come and settle here in the valley. So we know that that's one of the pieces. It's the geography. The second thing is that we have highways that go through neighborhoods. So through our Healthy Air Network, and we can put that link in the chat, we've done some analysis with our teammates from Yale School of Public Health. And it certainly, as you see poor air quality in those sensors that are located near highways. So that is another piece of it. It is transportation related air quality that is impacting us. So we had seen improvement in air quality. Dr. Sadof mentioned the fact that air quality improved after closing the Mount Tom coal power plant. What we're seeing now is that our air quality generally it's even though it's not some of the worst in the world or the worst in the country, it is having those same impacts because we have a vulnerable population. So if you put together the transportation impacts, the wildfires, the climate change, we know that air quality is going to, the quality will decrease as climate change impacts continue to be exacerbated. So the fact that now it's just a regular occurrence that we have wildfires, and we even have brush fires in our region. This is really unusual. Now we're seeing that change. And so any additional impact, this is where the cumulative impacts, if we're already a vulnerable population, we already have a lot of people who have lung disease or cardiovascular disease, and then you put on top of that yet another source of pollution, that is what we're trying to prevent. We're working really hard to improve asthma outcomes. We don't need another source that's going to put us back down.
Thanks, Sarita. Did you want to add anything, Dr. Sadof, or is that good?
I completely agree with Sarita. Completely.
Okay, thank you. So, Counselor Fenton, at this point, do you think, I know you already sort of said this, but could you just say again, the questions are sort of really about, okay, we're on board, how can we help? Could you maybe just clarify again, next steps, how can people get on board? Do you need more letters of support? Can you talk us through the next steps specifically?
Yeah, so I would say of the three legs to the stool, the air quality permit, the tax credits with the state, and the land use disputes with the city, the one that really, not to speak for Senator Gomez, but the one that really is most prone to public influence is the legislative process around removing woody biomass from those energy credit definitions. So I would rely on Councilor Gomez to say where those letters or that outreach can be directed, but there is an ability to reach out to the chair of the applicable committee. It's Senator Barrett on the Senate side, and I'm not sure who it is on the House side. But those elected representatives are agents for the people, and the people can write to them and say, we really support Senator Gomez and Representative Ramos's amendments here. And if those amendments pass timely, they will make it economically unfeasible to proceed with this project. I can't provide instruction for exactly how to do that. I would rely on Senator Gomez for that, but I would say that's the thing that's most prone to public influence. The other thing that members of the public can do, which is not as effective, but would be useful, is the Supreme Judicial Court does consider public interest when deciding whether or not to hear a case. They're not going to decide the case based on our opposition to the plant. They're going to decide it based on the law associated with the permits. But whether or not the SJC decides to take our case on the local land use permits, they do consider public input. So the Conservation Law Foundation is preparing a form letter. I asked them for a draft of it earlier this week, and it's still not ready. But at the appropriate time, when that draft letter is ready to go to the Supreme Judicial Court, we would be looking for community organizations and leaders to sign on to that letter so that we could submit it in an organized way to the SJC. I can't tell anybody not to send letters to the SJC and ask them to hear the case. I mean, that you can do that. But that wouldn't be my preferred strategy. My preferred strategy would be to have one letter that all the organizations sign on to that is more likely to get the attention of the clerk of that court.
Okay, very helpful. Very helpful. Thank you so much. Question for you, Councilor Fenton. Have you already filed the appeal with the SJC?
Yes, we have. And well, it's not called filing appeal. It's called requesting certiorari. That's the legal term. And unlike a lower appellate court, you don't have the right to an appeal when it comes to this level of decision. Think of it like the United States Supreme Court. They don't hear every case. They decide which cases they hear, and they hear less than 10% of cases. They pick the most controversial ones. One's about, Trump's executive power, another about abortion, another about, et cetera. And the court decides which cases they will or will not hear. If the court does not hear our case, then we have no further appellate rights. So we have filed a request with the court to hear our appeal. And unlike lower appellate courts who are obligated to hear our appeal, the SJC will decide whether or not they even want to hear it. So the first hurdle is we're trying to convince the court, and we've already filed the paperwork to do so, to hear our appeal. And we have already started the process to do that. And I know Councilor Govan is also on the chat. We voted to do that as a city council about a month ago. It was the middle of May.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for that legalese upgrade on that. So thank you so much. Sarita, Councilor Govan is asking, what would the impact to our air quality be if we cut down our small forests in the city? So can you speak to how?
Sure. So I wish I have Dave Bloniarz from Regreen Springfield in my head now, channeling him about what he would say about the impact of trees. So as you all know, the tornado in 2011 wiped out like 30,000 trees in Springfield. So that was a huge place. And as Dr. Sadof has said, and as people know, the city has worked very hard to be planting more trees, working in conjunction the forestry department with Regreen Springfield, they've made tremendous strides. And yes, for every tree does this cleaning process. And what I can do is put a link in the chat for how you can even go and look at a tree and figure out how much of the air pollution does it clean. Because this is what the U.S. Forest Service has developed to really make that case that trees are critical to keeping our air clean. So I will definitely put that in the chat, but definitely this is really an important issue for us to support the urban forestry efforts, not just here in Springfield, but across the Commonwealth to really address this. And I see in the chat, there was a question about the written testimony. So we put in the chat how to submit your some written testimony supporting this bill. Definitely call your legislators and ask them to co-sponsor the bill. We have some information on that. There is a website too. This is the No Toxic Biomass that is led by Partnership for Integrity. And they have already put together some information and action items around the legislation. So definitely there are those steps. We are in the process of writing the letter to put together to go to the SJC. So if you are interested, if your organization would be interested, so you can either put that in the chat that your organization, you can message me, and we will send information about that once that letter is drafted and we're ready for co-signers. We're in that process right now, working with the RISE and some other groups.
Okay, thank you so much. And in the chat, Andrea Freeman has put the link to if you want to submit testimony or anything regarding the legislation, it's due today at 5 p.m. And there's a link there where she has put the link. So please do prioritize that. As Councilor Fenton said, that's kind of our next move. And if there are no, I do want to call out Springfield Food Policy Council, Gardening the Community. There are a lot of other groups who have been coming at this issue of health and health outcomes and asthma prevention as well. So I want to give them a shout out. And there are no other questions in the Q&A function, and I think we've covered a lot in the chat. So at this point, if there's no other questions coming in, and if none of our speakers want to add any other points, we could send out.
I would just say, Jessica, that there was some really excellent information in the chat about how to submit testimony. So I would encourage all the participants and viewers to look at that closely. And thank you for highlighting that the deadline is today for the state legislature submissions. I wasn't aware of that. So please, if you share our opposition to the plan, please consider following the instructions in the chat and submitting that testimony.
Yes, and again, we want to thank Representative Orlando Ramos and State Senator Gomez, obviously, for the legislation. And feel free to get in touch with us if you need support with regard to submitting testimony. You can certainly follow up with the Public Health Institute of Western Mass today before 5. So thank you everyone for your commitment to this. We will on our website and through our newsletters, the Pioneer Valley Asthma Coalition newsletters, we can keep everyone abreast of this. Oh, last question, Councilor Fenton, how will the city council be sharing information about the progress of the of your progress with the courts?
The appeal, there's not much to share, actually. Okay. I mean, the only thing we can really do is work on that letter, submit it, and then the SJC will take its time deciding on whether to hear it. It could take months. It will take months before we hear. And then when we hear if they're going to take the case, then it would just be a question of us briefing it and submitting argument. There may be an opportunity for other legal organizations to submit amicus briefs in support of our position. So if we do end up with the case being heard by the SJC, we would have an update to share at that point. But between now and the time the SJC decides whether to hear it, which is not a date specific, it's whenever they decide, there really isn't much to update, at least on a municipal permitting level.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. And Sarita, any last things about how the coalitions will be continuing to inform the community?
Sure, we do regular newsletters, and we, if you look at our social media, we'll be posting things there. So please sign up at healthyairnetwork.org. And I think there's a link in the chat for you all to sign up. That would be the best place to go and check out that website, and you'll get updates there.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sadof. Thank you, Counselor
you.
Fenton. And we will be in touch and continue the hard work. So please fill out the survey if you have a moment. We appreciate everyone's participation, and we'll give you some time back in your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.